So Anne, your great intention to start off as a writer of straight historical novels got off to a flying start with Cater Street Hangman, didn't it?
After some considerable time, yes it did.
Yeah.
And it's still in print, I'm happy to say.
Well, yes, I know, that's quite a miracle after 32 years.
Something like that. I go back and look at it and I think of what I might have done better, but it's a bit late now.
Yes.
Better with the next one.
Well, it's always better with the next one. But with the, obviously not, your intention wasn't necessarily to start with a series of detective novels.
I was just thrilled to have it accepted. I mean, if you get no for years, then suddenly yes, you kept expecting to wake up and discover you dreamed it again.
I don't think anybody would have known at the time that the series would still be going now. I mean, it's a fantastic run.
I'm very, very lucky. And I think it's because I'm still interested in the characters and because they do move. I mean, they've moved many years forward. I mean, they started in 1881 and we're now in 1896.
Well, we really get to know them. I mean, Pitt starting as the sort of lowest of the low in a brand new profession that everybody thought was worse than the rat catcher, and, what Charlotte was born to, that obviously she had to surrender.
She had to surrender a lot of things, but she sacrificed in the best sense that you give away something good in order to get something even better.
Yes.
Because she's never bored, never trapped, never feels as if she's kind of only worth the relationship she has. You're so-and-so's daughter, you're so-and-so's husband, you're so-and-so's mother. Who am I?
Yes.
She is somebody.
Well, absolutely, because she has quite a behind-the-scenes role with Pitt.
She does indeed, yes. And just occasionally she gets in front of the scenes too.
Oh, well, yes.
And has a lot of fun and occasionally causes a lot of trouble.
Well, yes. Well, between her sort of natural clumsiness and her natural brains, she's
and
quite an interesting...
outspokenness as well.
Yes.
And she's a bit of a crusader. And sometimes she sees the cause ahead of the destruction on either side as she makes her way towards it.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
But I think we all identify with that.
Yes.
If you don't feel passionately, what are you here for?
But she's so instrumental in giving Pitt that access to the areas that he wouldn't necessarily know.
Exactly. And I think it's a good idea to have both a male and female point of view, particularly in Victorian periods, when men and women saw very, very different things. But even now, if you get a room full of women, no men present, they'll behave quite differently than they will if there's a man present. And similarly, I imagine, men do as well. I hear that they do. And we judge each other quite differently. A woman can see through a woman in a heartbeat. And a man sitting there, oh, isn't she? Come on, take a look. But I think men would the same way. We get bedazzled by certain things that another man would think, oh, please. And therefore you get a very binocular view of things, which makes the story much tighter and sharper, I think.
Well, in terms of a detective story where actually it's really about how people behave and what desperation might drive some people to do, this way we get both the male and the female view on that, so that we do get a sort of 360-degree
That's the intention. Added to which we know each other much better, our own gender, than we do the opposite. And we see different things. I mean, a woman can look at what another woman is wearing and have a pretty good idea how she feels.
Yes.
And you know what's been let out and what's been taken in.
Yes.
And you know the little tricks because you practice them yourself.
Well, absolutely. And if you've had to economise by
Yes.
changing things around a little bit, or cutting a skirt and making a jacket.
Same dress, different accessories.
Yeah.
Yes. We know that very well.
Yes, absolutely. But I think Charlotte is such a clever, and perhaps not necessarily, she doesn't get the credit for this, but for the reader, of course, the Victorian era is quite foreign to some people, and she's the one who sort of helps explain it while she's explaining it to Pitt. She can explain it to us.
I think so, and I've discovered, as far as research is concerned, it's wonderful to have domestic research, because you can have somebody ironing something using a flat iron or several flat irons that you have to heat up on the stove, and have a discussion about something that really matters to the story or to character, whilst they're using equipment that we would look at and think, what on earth is she doing?
Yes.
But you get to realise exactly where and when you are and how different those things are.
Well, with Charlotte and Emily and Caroline and all of those characters, we get such a really good access to all the sensuality of the Victorian era, and what they were wearing, what colours they would have worn, and what they were eating, and what the table looks like, and all of that kind of thing. While at the same time with Pitt, we get the whole sort of absolutely the other side of Victoriana and that terrible.
That's the intention. That's the intention. But I like the glamour as well.
Of course.
And the bitchiness.
Naturally, it's.
What a lovely dress that is, dear. It looked just as good last year and the year before.
Yes, exactly. So, yes, I mean, people don't change, do they?
No, not at all, especially in the bitchiness.
Yes. But it's quite something to live with those characters over such a long period of time. Where
I'll tell you something awful that I've done. I started out identifying with Charlotte, and then I moved to identifying with her mother. Now, I'm not identifying with her grandmother, she's a horror. I'm identifying with Great Aunt Vespasian.
Yes, well, that's a very good choice. I mean, the most glamorous of all of the characters. And
dreams are free.
Pardon?
Dreams are free.
Dreams are free, indeed.
Yes. Yes.
Well, also, that wonderful knack of slightly getting younger with each year.
Yes, I do know that she's getting younger as time goes by. I know it's a contradiction. I don't care. If I ever find out how to do it, I'll tell you.
Please do. We'll all need that.
Yes.
But I suppose, you didn't really intend her to continue.
Expect her to walk on and walk off.
I know, so she started a little bit too old to continue as long as people wanted. And
yes.
So she has to sort of retrench a little bit and get younger.
Quite a lot, yes. And she gets larger parts as time goes on.
Well, she's a lot to do.
She has a lot to do, and I've got a personal life worked out for her too.
Oh.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's going to be interesting.
Well, as I get older myself, I realise you don't necessarily feel any different. But you are aware of the fact that other people look at you and think, oh, she's finished, go back into your corner and pick up your knitting or something. And she's beginning to realise, with a couple of ones that are written but not out yet, that she hasn't got so very long ahead of her, but she still feels just as vital and just as alive and cares just as intensely, perhaps even more so.
Sure.
So I'm hoping that the older reader might identify and think, yes, I still feel like that inside.
Well, that's a very good point, because you reach such a broad age range of readers.
I hope so. The youngest I've heard of is, sort of just into their teens.
Well, they're very accessible. I mean, it's you deal with very grown-up issues and very grown-up emotions and situations. But on the other hand, it's very accessible. It's nothing that you would worry about your teenage kid reading.
Well, I think by implication is the way to suggest things that perhaps don't belong in teenage knowledge. And I don't think you should find out certain things by reading about them. If you don't already know, I'm not the one to tell you, and if you do know, you can fill in the blanks for yourself.
Sure.
But I get most of the ideas for plot lines and emotional anxieties and deep concerns from current news.
Yes.
Absolutely. Because we don't change in the things we care about.
No, of
or what
course.
hurts us. And unfortunately, most of the major problems they have, we still have.
Well, absolutely, and it just gives that wonderful modern resonance. So, in some ways you're talking about anarchists, but that's another word. We would use the word terrorist now.
I had a nice experience with one of them. I was touring America and somebody said to me, I don't suppose you realise it, but that's exactly what's happening today. I thought, really? You don't say.
Yes, well, obviously that's getting through.
Yes,
whether or not.
yes. But most readers are pretty sharp.
Yes.
They really are.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And they've seen, what you've had to say about the Irish situation and its roots then and how it's still so relevant now and that sort of thing. So we've seen Pitt really come up from, his earliest, most difficult days trying to get a foothold in a profession that's not highly regarded and nobody really cooperates with. And he's doing quite well now. It's a very interesting dynamic with Charlotte. He's actually overtaking her now.
Yes, he is. He's now been promoted to head of special branch. And the reason I did it was because it's put him into an area where he no longer can solve a crime and leave the resolution of what happens to people to somebody else. He is now in charge. He has no superior to whom he can refer. and therefore all the ugly decisions, the grey decisions, are up to him, and he's right out of his area of emotional comfort.
Well, that's very important for your characters. You have to just
Yes.
really torture them and
Yes,
challenge
exactly.
them
It's
and
very
push them out
difficult to
there.
torture the people you care about, but no pain, no growth.
Well, that's the way we get to see
Yes.
what they're made of.
Yes.
And we've seen some very interesting decisions.
He's
with Pitt
discovered,
recently.
yes, he has to make some very difficult, dark decisions, and there's nobody he can refer to. He can't even really ask Charlotte what she thinks, and there's nobody above him. He has to not only make the decision, but sometimes carry it out, and it has to happen in, I'd snap my fingers if I could, in a matter of a few moments.
Yeah.
So he's growing. I've got plans for him.
Well, he's always been, he's always been very full of integrity. He's been very
Yes.
interested in doing the right thing for the right reasons in the right way. And it feels like he's going to areas where it's not so clear cut and the rules
Exactly.
are more difficult for him to see.
He's got to have a challenge.